Good morning. Good morning. Welcome to you all. The question of the day is biocontrol an essential ingredient of the Green Deal? In the next hour and a half, we will hear the lowdown on a groundbreaking report into the benefits of biocontrol. We have a really strong lineup of speakers who will discuss the benefits of biological pest control for nature, health, and climate, and who will reflect on the implications of the report for EU policy. We have an audience of close to 250 signed up. I can see many of you coming in right now. Welcome to you all. You're in the right place, at the right event. The event of the day is biocontrol, an essential ingredient of the Green Deal. Welcome to you all. We're going to wait just a couple of moments before we kick off. Before we kick off properly, I'll just say good morning and who am I? My name's Jo Sullivan. I'm moderating today's discussion. As a 30-year, I have to say, veteran of EU policy debates, food and agriculture policy, and a strong advocate of the ecological transition, I'm particularly pleased to be invited today. So just to say again, this event is biocontrol, an essential ingredient of the Green Deal. And in the next 1.5 hours, we will hear about a groundbreaking report into the benefits of biocontrol. And we will hear from our strong lineup of speakers who will discuss the benefits of biological pest control for nature, health, and climate, and reflect on this on the findings of this report. So welcome to everybody. I want you first to meet our hosts for today. Let me first introduce Faustine Bas-Defossé. She is External Impact Director at the Institute for European Environment Policy, who together with Jennifer Lewis, who is the Director of International Biocontrol Manufacturers Association, they are hosting today's event. Faustine, I'll pass the floor to you for a few words of introduction. Thank you, Faustine.
Thanks a lot, Jo. I will be very quick because indeed we have a lot of speakers today, and I'm sure everyone wants to hear from them and not from the host. But yes, welcome and thanks a lot for being with us today. It's great to see so many people interested in the topic of biocontrol. It's pleased to see that, yes, so many of you, even early in the morning, registered for the launch of our reports on biocontrols and its contribution to the Green Deal objectives. Let me say just a few words to kick the discussion. The science is unequivocal on the need to move rapidly towards sustainable food and farming system in order to stay within planetary boundaries. And actually, I was reading yesterday bits of the most recent assessment report from the IPCC, which should be released in 2022. It is extremely alarmist and calls for drastic and urgent changes. It also gives an idea of how the future of children risks looking like. And I must confess that as a mother of 2 little ones, I can only be extremely worried. So transformation towards a sustainable food and farming system has never been so urgent and is part of the solution. So we believe that today's report can help bring those solutions for achieving these changes. As a systemic and balanced alternative to chemical inputs in farming, biocontrol is an enabler of system changes. That's actually why we were very enthusiastic when IBMA came to us and asked for that literature review around the benefits of biocontrol. I really hope that today's debate will be fruitful. We'll give you some ideas on the contribution of biocontrol to the Green Deal. And I also believe that it's actually very timely because as we're speaking now, the decision makers are trying to strike a deal on the future of the common agricultural policy. And tomorrow there is also a big stakeholders debate around the future of the sustainable use of pesticides directive. So it could not be more timely than that. And actually, just a technical thing, I saw a question in the chat for the PowerPoints, whether it will be shared with the participants. Yes, we will share the PowerPoints afterwards. Thanks a lot again. And yes, I hope that you will all enjoy our event today.
Thank you very much, Faustine. Thank you. Jennifer, a few words.
Thank you, Jo. Thank you, Faustine, and the entire IEP team for this important report. And thank you to all our panelists and the audience for joining the event. Biocontrol is important. Why? Because it's Biocontrol is a nature-based solution for pest control, and it is an enabler in the European Green Deal, particularly for the farm to fork objectives. And as a trained agronomist with experience in all types of crop protection, I'm passionate to see us switch to a more systems-based approach to farming. So I'm really looking forward to the debate today, and thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Jennifer. Now, this event brings together expert speakers, but it's also an event for you, our audience today. We have 125 now, and it's still creeping up the numbers as people have grabbed a coffee and they're joining us. Welcome to you as you're joining. It's also an event for you, our audience. So we want to hear from you. So please put your comments in the chat. If you have a question about the topic or to one of the speakers, or about generally the debate or the report, put those into the Q&A. There are 2 separate buttons. And make sure you get your message across also on social media. You can use the hashtag biocontrolbreakthrough. And I would just like to say also that this is the slide you can see in front of you. Exactly. This is the hashtag that's been used, biocontrolbreakthrough, because this is why we're here and this is what we want to achieve. Questions in the Q&A and comments into the chat. And that way we can filter them out. We can also keep the questions. If we don't get to all of your questions today, we do somehow commit to getting back to all of you with an answer to make sure that, you do get up to date, up to speed with biocontrol, what it is, what its benefits are, and also what EU policy measures, so that you also can join into this. Is just the beginning of a big political conversation of how to achieve this breakthrough. So thank you. So we're keen to hear from Jean-François Hulot, who together with Nora Hiller and Faustine have written the report, which is published today, just this morning. And it's called Exploring the Benefits of Biocontrol for Sustainable Agriculture, a literature review on biocontrol in light of the European Green Deal. So while Jean-François gets his presentation up, just allow me just to give a short introduction. As we just said, or as Jennifer just said, biocontrol is a nature-based solution. It's non-chemical. It can offer a systemic and balanced solution for sustainable agriculture. Can biocontrol offer a breakthrough for the European Green Deal, particularly the farm to fork objectives? So before Jean-François presents his findings of the report, I hope you're able to put that up, Jean-François. I had a sneak preview of the report, actually, and it makes a really compelling reading. It presents concrete evidence on the ways biocontrol can enable systemic change towards sustainable agriculture. Jean-François Hulot, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Joe. Hello, everyone. I'm happy to join here to give you a presentation of this report, which is released today on the IEEP website. I am an agronomist, and I've been very happy to dig into this subject together with my colleague Nora Hiller from the IEEP. So I will guide you through this report, and to that effect I will share my screen and hopefully show you the PowerPoint which is associated with this presentation. And here we are, I hope so. I see knocking heads, so I'm quite comforted with this. Exploring the benefits of biocontrol for sustainable agriculture. That's our subject for this report. And the approach we took is a literature review. I will explain the methodology we used in a minute. But first, I would like to stop 1 second on the word biocontrol. Well, biocontrol, what do we mean? Well, we have the associations of 2 words, bio and control. And we should stick to this. So bio, we mean biological means to control pest and disease on plants. So in one word, it's a way to ensure plant protection without using chemicals, to put it in a simple language. So how do we do that? Well, we will use insects to eat other insects. So we use beneficial insects to make their lunch with aphids or other predators of the crops. They are microorganisms or invertebrates. But also microorganisms may be used, like fungi or bacteria, if they have the effect we want to get to protect the crops. Also pheromones, which are the hormones for the insects and the plants, or natural substances of mineral origin. We will not go into that detail. It's just to say there are plenty of solutions for biocontrol. There are natural means, biological means to control pests and disease on plants. How did we proceed? So the methodology we use, we want a scientific approach, independent approach, and we have reviewed a number of scientific articles in peer-reviewed journals, very classic methods. We also use some other inputs, including commission communications or other publications in other type of literature or in books. We have been reviewing also the research project funded by the EU over the last say 20 years in FP7 and Horizon 2020. And all this in the context of the EU, focusing on the EU, and in the context of the EU law, which is applicable for biocontrol. Just a feeling about how biocontrol is treated in the various policies put in place in the EU. As I said, we looked for research innovation, and we have been pleased to see that a growing number of projects have been financed around the issues of biocontrol. A lot of technical issues, scientific issues, with a growing number, and this will continue with the next program, Horizon Europe. We can say also that in the Common Agricultural Policy, there is nothing negative about biocontrol, but there is very little positive. We take note that the organic regulation is very mature, is complete, and it's part of the CAP. So we could say on the CAP could do better, but we will come to this also later. The striking element is the pesticide approval regime, which is absolutely not done for biocontrol. We come back on this later. And of course, the policy for environment is very positive for biocontrol because it's a natural mean of treating pest and disease on the crops. I go directly to our findings. Of course, the report itself will give much more details about definitions and about the policy context. We have organized our findings along the immediate benefits like biodiversity, soil, or human health, and also some wider impacts on the farm performance, on the issue of climate, and the question of governance, which is a very interesting one. So I will spend a couple of minutes to guide you through those findings with a little bit more details now. If we turn to biodiversity, well, the result is as expected, that if you use less chemicals, the impact on environment is very positive, and you see more biodiversity in agriculture when biocontrol is used. Biocontrol may be used by organic farmers, but it can be used also by non-organic farmers. It's not specific to a particular type of farming. It can be used everywhere in all type of agriculture. and it can be an enabler for turning agriculture to a more sustainable agriculture. So we frequently found in literature the example of organic farming, because that's the place where you can have a number of results on a big scale and have very scientific results to be published in literature. So there is no discussion there. Biocontrol is very positive to biodiversity. It respects non-targeted fauna and flora. There are no negative side effects. Everything is targeted. And one conclusion, which is very interesting, is to read from the European Commission itself, that when organic farming is used for agriculture, then we have 30% more biodiversity that can be observed on the fields. Another domain of direct impact is the soil. Because it's also a question of biodiversity. When biocontrol is used, only natural substances will go into the soil, and you will have less toxic residues present in the soil. So the microbial communities will be preserved, and the soil life will be enhanced in the soil. And everyone knows that the living soil is a more fertile soil. So we read in research projects that if you compare conventional soil with organic farm soil, then you have a difference in the content of chemical pesticides, which is very substantial. So in conventional soil, you will have a content of 70% to 90% more pesticides, chemical pesticides left in the soil with a certain degree of toxicity for the soil life, if it is only conventional agriculture which is used. So we can say biocontrol will reduce the risk of chemical contamination, and I would say that we could also have a chapter on water, which is not present on this slide, but we could also say that as a consequence, the quality of water is far better because the percolation of substances, unwanted substances, is not the case when you use biocontrol. Human health. Well, human health, there are two branches of positive effects. The first, quite evident, is the toxicity for farmers and farm workers. Farmers and farm workers, they don't have to handle those toxic products that may be very dangerous for their own health, especially if they don't wear gloves or equipment protection. And we all know that there are a number of disease affecting farmers just because of the manipulation of pesticide. Another aspect is the fact that we are not using chemical pesticides or chemical substances, there are no residues in the harvest, and there is no chemical residues in food, which is something which responds very well to the needs of that consumers express very strongly now, that more attention is paid to food, to clean food, safe food, and better quality of the food. About the wider impacts, we have been looking at farm performance. Because there are a lot of maybe misconception about the performance. The first misconception, I think, is about efficacy. Frequently you can hear people doubt. They'll say, yes, but if I can't use this killer, which is a chemical substance, how can I be sure that my crop will be preserved? So I doubt that a little insect will solve my issue. Well, this is completely wrong. This is a misconception. Efficacy is no longer a discussion. Efficacy is no longer a discussion. There are plenty of evidence, not only in examples or in demonstration farms, but also on a bigger scales and also in the scientific literature. Maybe not enough, but we could find some scientific articles which are very complete. Unfortunately, not in the EU, but in New Zealand. But this example, and there are some others a bit everywhere in the world, that farm income is better if you use biocontrol, but just because the cost of biocontrol products is not as high as one may imagine. That's one element. A second element is that biocontrol is offering a solution where there is no longer a solution with chemicals. Why? Well, because as we are all observed, the list of authorized substances is shrinking in the EU. So the variability of the products that can be used by farmers is quite narrow, and some problems have difficulties to find solutions. So if we take, for example, Xylella is a problem. Solutions may not be with chemicals, solutions may be with biocontrol. There are plenty of other examples. So this capacity to bring solutions to problems and to new emerging disease, this capacity is a big asset for biocontrol, and biocontrol is certainly the future for preserving crops and harvest, be in orchards, in vineyards, in greenhouses, or in arable fields. Also, we looked at climate mitigation and climate adaptation. And here it's more intuitive. But intuitively, you can well imagine that if you use natural substances, which are very easy to produce, or it's not too difficult to multiply microorganisms or insects or larvae, those easy to produce agents will bring less emissions at the stage of their production than if chemical pesticides, because if you want to produce quantities of pesticides, you have to use the chemical industry, and the chemical industry is bringing its share of emissions in the system. There is also the fact that biocontrol is the enabler for a more sustainable farming, and sustainable farming will be the solution for climate adaptation. So all those considerations are intuitive, logical, and partially confirmed in scientific literature, but we would call for more research on this domain, because we found some evidence, but we would say that we were expecting finding more. So on climate, I would say it will be part of our recommendation to work a little bit more on the relationship between biocontrol and climate, and between climate and sustainable farming. Another domain which is very interesting to look at is governance. Well, under this word of governance, what we want to say here is that the fact that the way of managing the farm, the way of thinking of the farmer, if he is using biocontrol, the way of thinking will be changed, because you have first to understand what's going on the crop. Why do we have this mildew, or why do we have this disease? What is the behavior of this insect? Can we have another biological mean, a predator for this insect? So you have to understand what's going on in nature, and you have to have a whole farm approach, an holistic approach, which takes into account all the side effects and the benefits, and also the constraints, which is a very different approach from the one which has been used in the past century, I would say, which is, I have a problem on a crop, I will use a pesticide, and the pesticide will kill the pest, and then we will solve. But then You say, that's very positive. I have a good result, but you have neglected the side effects. You don't have an holistic approach, and that's the problem. And now, if we want to achieve the Green Deal, farmers must have an holistic approach and take all the elements into account to align their own objectives on the farm to the objective of the whole society. And with this, I would like to say that biocontrol supports very well all the Green Deal objectives. So we have selected on these slides a number of objectives from the EU strategy, being farm to fork or biodiversity strategy, or the recent zero pollution strategy. So if you look at the objective of having 50% less chemical pesticide use, well, which is said like that, you say, okay, how do I do to protect my crops if I cannot use pesticide? Well, solution is, well, you can use natural means, so biological means. So biocontrol will probably offer a solution to you, I would say. When organic farming is expected to expand by 2030 on 25% on the farmland, when it is something like 8% for the moment, which is a very big expansion, it means that pesticides, chemical pesticides, will be banned on this land. So biocontrol will be a solution. When biodiversity strategy says that at least 10% of the agriculture area should have a high biodiversity in landscape feature by preserving ages and so on. So biocontrol will also bring a positive touch here. And the objective of 75% of soil that have to be healthy, which is the objective from the soil mission from the Horizon Europe, which has been taken on board by the strategy of zero pollution. As we said 1 minute ago, biocontrol is very positive for soil life and will help bring soils in a more healthy status. And I will finish with the recommendation from the IEEP about biocontrol. First, we clearly need a definition. I will not go too much into detail here, but biocontrol doesn't mean the same to different people, and on the other side of the Atlantic, biocontrol is far much narrow, and so on. So we need a EU definition. We don't have an EU definition. There is a certain consensus, and the consensus is around the 4 categories which are mentioned in the French biocontrol strategy, but which is probably the one to build on for EU definition. But whatever definition, we need one. We need something different in the pesticide regulation. I will not go too much in detail here. It's much more detailed in the report, but the evaluation process is done for toxic products, which we need it, of course. That's the regulation we have for pesticides. But for biocontrol agents, we don't need all those steps. It's too long. It's too heavy, and we need more products from biocontrol very quickly. So for this, we need a faster, cheaper, efficient evaluation process, which can be inspired by what is done in the US or in some other countries where it is a lighter process. The third recommendation from the IEEP, no surprise, we should use national strategic plan of the CAP to expand biocontrol and mainstream it. On research needs, I also mentioned that we need to look a little bit more on climate and on societal needs. And the fifth recommendation is field application. Example is the way how it works in agriculture. So we need demonstration farms, we need farm networks, we need more advisory services, speaking about biocontrol as a solution to achieve the objectives of the Green Deal and the farm to fork. And with this, I would like to thank you for your attention and invite you to visit the IEEP website to read the full report. It's a 30 pages report, which is very interesting to read. Enjoy it. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Jean-François. That was a very clear presentation with very clear recommendations. Before we get into our panel discussion and before you meet our speakers, does anybody have any questions of clarification on the report? If there are none, it was very clear to me. No questions of clarification. Jean-François, you did a brilliant job. This is a tough job to present a scientific report in a very clear way, so congratulations to you. Excellent. So at this point then, let's then get straight into the discussion, and we can meet our first speaker for our first reaction. We are going to turn to Martin Heusig, who is member of the European Parliament. He is from the Renew Europe group. Martin, welcome. We've heard now that biocontrol is a nature positive approach to farming, multiple benefits. We've just heard those laid out very clearly. So if biocontrol is an essential ingredient of the Green Deal, what EU policies do you think are now needed, given what we've just heard in terms of the recommendations, to help farmers transition to this systems approach, to nature-based farming? Martin, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much for the question, and really interesting presentation. Now, I cannot go into details on your question because I would end up talking for too long if you there's lots of policies, but at the same time, we actually very, very closely, we just have to do a simple thing. We have to change the fundamental approach we have to the pest control. And I think agriculture as such, it should be less extractive, and we need to look at more how we can do things with nature. And I think this is going to be the most rewarding. Also, at the end of the day, in what we get out of the soil and what we get in terms of the ecosystem services, because I think this is an important part as well. Now, I believe that what we need to look at is how to really start shifting the approach to pest control. And yes, we are late in the day in the common agriculture policy negotiations. I would like to be saying that, look, yes, this is a great opportunity. The CAP can offer the chance. I don't think that we can do it now in the late phase of trialogue, but the strategic plans on this are going to be crucial. The interesting thing about the new CAP is that there's a lot to be determined by the countries. And this is where then in the implementation phase, I think it's going to be important to look at how we can get it done on a practical level. Second, farm to fork came out with the 50%. I would like to actually see more. And I think what we should also see is that it's not just, and I think that's even more important in terms of the legislation, it would not be, or kind of the commitment, it's not important to have general saying 50 or even 100. It's important to have something binding so we actually are forced to stick our commitments. So I would like to see this 50% reduction both in volume as well as the hazard enshrined in the law. Now, going in more detail to biocontrol, I think this is where the current approach, the current pesticides regulation has been a step forward, but what we see and being in the objections all the time, it needs to be reviewed because it's not providing us anymore with adequate level of protection from hazardous chemicals, both of our health and environment. But even more importantly, in some ways, and coming from a Renew group, which is kind of pushing for the innovation all the time, it's stifling the innovation. We have a system which is actually blocking the use of biocontrol, blocking the use of nature-based solutions in the agriculture, because it's applying the one-to-one system on something which is uncompatible. And I think this is something where we need to look at both in the Sustainable Use Directive as well as the pesticide regulations to make sure that we really create the opportunities. Because in some ways it's, and as someone who's been in the environmental movement since early 90s, I don't want to use it's good for the nature, health, and environment. It's really something which is even good for business, in my view. This is something where we can really bring about a fair competition. At the moment, it's not even a fair competition. That you don't have a fair chance with the biocontrol because you have so many obstacles. So I think this needs to be also reflected. And at the end of the day, we need all these things, urgently need to use biocontrol instead of hazardous pesticides or any essentially synthetic chemicals, because not only of the problem of the contamination with hazardous pesticides, I work a lot on soils as well, and we have a serious problem with the soil health. We're killing our soils, which are the foundation of the life, and biocontrol is a means of actually help to reverse this trend. And the end result is not only healthy soils, and being able to feed ourselves and, protecting large chunk of pollinators, another favorite topic of mine, but also helping to start storing carbon more. We at the moment have a problem where the agriculture is a source of emission. The soil is a source of greenhouse gas emissions rather than being a sink. It is essential for us to actually turn the agriculture into an instrument of storing carbon, encourage the farmers to farm carbon, so to say, not as a, instead of the food, but it should be alongside the food, and create the right legislative framework that would encourage that. And it might not sound so direct, but this is where moving away from synthetic pesticides into biocontrol is actually enabling the healthy ecosystems in the soil, which is crucial for taking the carbon down out of the air. So this is something where it's win-win-win, many wins at the end of the day. And we need to have the right environment where these products are available on the market. We actually enable and allow them to be on the market, and at the same time help the farmers to use them. It's not it's often seen as like, you want to, with all the rush against pesticides that the farmers. I think the result is to help the farmers, to support them in their effort, because farmers are, and the whole farming community is so vital for all of us. And that's where I'm hoping that in the autumn we're going to see from the Commission's proposals that, I don't want to say be ambitious, be realistic in what we actually need to deliver, and we need to deliver a lot. So I'm looking forward to the further inputs and discussion. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Martin. And we know that you have to dash off at some point. So thank you very much for that intervention. I just want to get back, because we actually had a question, and linking to what you said about the national strategic plans, Martin. We have a question actually to Jean-François on the, there's a question directly from Émeric Berning from DG Agri, which is in Brussels speak, the Directorate General for Agriculture of the European Commission. Jean-François, perhaps you could just jump in before we pass the floor to Eric Liégeois from the Commission, who is in DG Santé, which is the Health and Food Safety Department. Jean-François, could you develop a bit more what you expect from the CAP strategic plans? That's the question that we had from the audience. Jean-François.
Thank you, Joe. Thank you, Émeric, for the question. We develop a little bit more in the report, of course, but I could say in a nutshell, we expect that the eco-conditionality will be more efficient, more stringent, and that IPMs, integrated pest management, is a precondition to get any direct payment in the first pillar, and that it is effectively applied. We also expect still in the first pillar that the eco schemes would help farmers adopting biocontrol, and that eco schemes could be developed by the member states to help for this transition, so supporting farmers for biocontrol. We would also recommend in the second pillar that advisory services would be developed, also in the direction of sustainable agriculture, of course, but also using biocontrol as an enabler and doing a sort of promotion and knowledge dissemination. Knowledge dissemination is crucial for mainstreaming biocontrol or mainstreaming sustainable agriculture. We could have also use of classical measures of agro-environment in the second pillar. In a nutshell, that's what we would recommend for the CAP strategic plan, and we hope that the Commission will check this against the member states' submission, so that we get a real effect on environment in those CAP strategic plans. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that answer, Jean-François. I want to now turn to Eric Liégeois from the European Commission. As a Commission official in DG Santé, which is you're responsible for healthy crops and safe food in the context of the farm to fork. We just heard that the pesticide approval regime is not designed for biocontrol, and also from Martin that it is actually stifling innovation of nature-based solutions. Eric, do you agree that biocontrol is an essential ingredient of the Green Deal? And if so, what needs to change in terms of policy?
Definitively, yes. And good morning to everyone. Yes, we share these views indeed. And this is an important tool to be explored in order to achieve the objective that the Farm to Fork strategy has set for all of us in terms of shifting towards more sustainable plant protection practice and products. So indeed, this is an observation that with which we can agree. The other observation is indeed that we have a regulatory system which is pretty complex with two main poles into it. One dedicated to the placing on the market, and this is true that the biocontrol agents are not really favored according to the data requirement and the assessment principle we have currently in the pesticide legislation. This is why we are working, and we are working since 2018 on it, to adapting the data requirement in order to transform the system to a more fit for purpose assessment. So meaning taking into consideration the biology, the ecology of this naturally present biocontrol agent, in particular for the microorganism. I'm now talking and focusing on the category microorganisms, which belongs to this definition of biocontrol agent. So it means that we will have a proposal on the table in the autumn for adapting this regulatory system in order to foster the placing on the market of this biocontrol agent, in particular the microorganism. The second part of the job is actually done on the use phase, and the Sustainable Use Directive is existing since a couple of years as well, and this is going to be reviewed in a sense to give more importance to the integrated pest management practice, which is an obligation since a couple of years as well, but it seems not to be as developed as it should be. And so therefore we have several projects which are now currently in the pipeline and developed by colleagues in DG Agri, in DG Joint Research Center, to help actually to identify the tools that farmers might be able to use in order to switch to this sustainable use plant protection practices. So it means that the integrated pest management will become a key building block of the approach that farmers should follow. I hope also that indeed in the national strategic plan that we were just mentioning now under the CAP, there will be also a strong mobilization of the member states in order to favor the association between direct payment and the obligation for the farmer to apply IPM principles concretely. And also we have to deal with the economics. And I'm also pleased to hear from the report today that this aspect of socioeconomic, the socioeconomic aspect have not been forgotten by IEEP, because it's also in a way some observation we are making. And the Joint Research Center are also organizing a survey among farmers in order to understand why they are blocked and they don't shift towards this strategy involving the biocontrol agent. Is there any economic reason? Is there a fear for not achieving the goal of a full plant protection of their crop? We don't know yet, but this is also interesting to notice that IEEP has found some information about that. So again, a very timely report, welcome report by DG Santé and the colleagues in the Commission, who are indeed working to research project towards change in the regulatory framework. The last one I would like to mention, beside this change on the data requirement for microorganism, I would like also to say that the definition of the biocontrol group of solutions and tools may also be envisaged under the suit revision. So it's also a possibility, an option that will be discussed, by the way, tomorrow in the stakeholder event that I'm encouraging you to all to participate to. And then finally, as regard the invertebrate insect and mites, which can also be beneficial to the plant protection and the sustainability increase of this plant protection, there will be indeed a study conducted by the Commission upon the request of and the appeal of the Council. Agrifish Council will indeed decide next week and put on the shoulder of DG Santé the responsibility to develop a kind of impact assessment study in order to see what are the options in order to foster also the harmonization of the regulatory approach among the member states for this beneficial insect. So all in all, we are at a key momentum, a political momentum, but also really transforming the regulatory approach that we have at the moment into a more sustainable food system in the EU. And we hope that this negative smiley that you show, Jean-François, will be turned in positive smiley one day. So thank you.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Eric. Of course, you have a tough job in the Commission leading the Green Deal, making sure that the policies there's motivation amongst member states, but also best practices and innovation in member states is also harnessed and liberated as well, to make sure that this can be speeded up as much as possible. Thank you, Eric. That's an interesting, great, encouraging view from the European Commission. I'll now pass the floor to another Eric, Eric van der Sommen. This is a view from a member state now, from the Netherlands. Eric is based here in Brussels at the Permanent Representation of the Netherlands to the EU. Welcome. So you advise your minister on veterinary, phytosanitary affairs, and also sustainable food production. So what's your view, Eric? Is biocontrol essential to the Green Deal? And how do we figure this out?
In very short, yes. But first of all, thank you for inviting me. I'm feeling very honored to be in such an eloquent group of speakers. And thank you also, Jean-François, for a clear and very explicit presentation of the report, which sounds very appealing to me. In short, biological control agents are important. We think in the Netherlands that the integrated pest management is depending on it. And with the possibility to get rid from the dependency on pesticide, and therefore the use of biological control agents should be encouraged. I think they will They are an element which is very much contributing into reaching the farm to fork targets that have been put before us. And I think it's a very good explanation or a very good example of reducing the use and risk of pesticides to be promoted into integrated pest management. We are supportive, therefore, of the study that's being asked for the Commission. That's at least the proposal is going to be on the agenda for the Agri-Fish of next week, as it is. And it's very good to have a study on the options to improve the availability and the use of these organisms. In the Netherlands, we have had some experience with developing and working with biological control agents, and our experience shows that the success of using these is determined by the innovation, proven effectiveness, and knowledge of the producers and growers. And therefore, it's a little bit contradictory to organize regulation in order to see to it that it's used in a certain way, because that might be taking away the innovational part of the producers at this point. We feel that we should avoid new hurdles, because if you consider these organisms beneficially, you should have some innovative aspect in organizing these. And if you go back to what the other Eric mentioned, the study that's currently asked from the European Commission, we are quite concerned that EU harmonization could lead to new and unnecessary administrative burdens, might make the whole procedure more bureaucratic than you need actually. And as it is, if you have developed a biological control agent, before introducing it into the environment, the biological control agents are evaluated. They are evaluated by the authorities on the risks of biodiversity, on the risks of plant health, and it's all based on already existing legislation. So I don't think we need new hurdles on this. The quality and the effectiveness of biological control agents, from my point of view, is guaranteed by a professional interaction between producer, advisor, and grower. I think that no producer or advisor will risk selling or advising a product that's not effective and give little value for the money that it's costing. And therefore, it's essential for their business model to only sell agents that are safe and working. The existing legislation is based on the guidelines that are in place in EPO, and I think they are quite efficient in dealing with the risks and effectiveness. And that was basically my statement.
Excellent. That's very clear, Eric. There's a view from the member state. It's all about let the legislation be fit for purpose, actually, and allow innovation. Don't stifle new innovations on the market in biocontrol. Thank you, Eric. That's a great contribution. You're all very busy in your various farm to fork policy measures, so we're really grateful for the time you're spending today. We're going to shift from member state level now to the regional government perspective. I welcome Vicente Dalmau Sorli from the Valencia regional government in Spain, home of paella and of abundant rice production. The region has already, Albufera region has already made the switch to 100% biocontrol rice production, with multiple benefits as cited in today's report. The example is cited in today's report. So Vicente is head of plant health services in the Department of Agriculture of the Valencia region. So Vicente, tell us a bit more about the benefits for your region of biocontrol. We're talking large scale rice production in harmony with a high value natural reserve, as I understand. So how did you achieve this, and what are the benefits, and how can the EU help to do more of this?
Yes, thank you, Joe. Good morning, everyone. Yes, as you told, Joe, paella is known everywhere. and it's made with rice. And around Valencia, we have about 16,000 hectares of rice. And years ago, we started this project of biocontrol that we've been able to enlarge it to the whole area by using pheromones. So pheromones are substances produced by insects, and we disrupt the behavior of insects in order to control them. Now we are able to produce insecticide-free rice because we don't need to use any more insecticides. But as you told, we are in a natural park environment. So we even have an interpretation center for tourists and visitors, and we have a poster to inform them that a biocontrol project is running there. We have also reduced the operators, workers, and bystander exposures because the amount of pesticide has been reduced in the area because we are not using insecticides. We also have detected a positive evolution in the nesting of aquatic birds in the area because there is a special protection site for birds in the surroundings. But we also have economic benefits because growers have seen that with less cost in the long term, they are able to reduce damages even below the amount of insecticide that was required before. Before we were spraying by aerial treatments with insecticides, and now we are using with less cost technique, this mating disruption technique, and the benefits are clear.
Excellent. Thank you very much for that intervention. So from your perspective, Vicente, you are actually, I mean, as I understand, you didn't get EU money to do your project. This was a pure local initiative. But what would you expect from the National Strategic Plan and from the EU money to help you scale up and speed up and spread out across crops and across regions in Spain and indeed for other regions of Europe? What would you expect?
Yes, we will try to enlarge this kind of project. We are trying to use it, for instance, for the European grapevine moths in vineyard, but also for the control of olive fly. In the past, we were using the operational programs to fund this kind of control, the biocontrol, for instance, for the Mediterranean fruit fly. We are using operational programs to give aid to the producers' organization in order to reduce the cost of this biocontrol. So we have to calculate the additional money that it's required to perform this kind of biocontrol, and this extra or additional costs are supplied by the EU CAP before with the operational programs. But now in the future, we are trying to find in the CAP strategic plans, we've seen that there is not still approved, but we have some types of intervention for rural developments, environmental, climate, and other management commitments. And we are trying to use this kind of article to make some plans to control in a larger scale the two examples I gave you before, the European grapevine moth and also the olive fly.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you very much for that clear explanation, Vicente. Let's bring in now farmer, a real farmer we have. Philippe, and he's in the field there in front of us. Philippe Rotberg-Gerber from Alsace in France, a firm advocate of biocontrol. Philippe collaborates with local firm CBC Bioguard and is active in regional cooperatives, so a real advocate of nature-based solutions. Philippe, what can you tell us about your experience?
Well, I must say I was born in a biocontrol farm. My father was using and promoting it in the early 70s already with IOBC and COAPI at that time. And I remember well, when I was a young boy, we had huge problems with mites, red mites, damaging orchards, even damaging vineyards, etc. And they had to be sprayed by chemicals. The more chemicals that were used, the more mites we had, was never ending. And when we started to realize that we should go with a more resilient use of products and starting using biocontrol products, all for a sudden the mite problem was resolved. So this is a very, very nice thing that I've seen as a very little boy, and this shaped me quite a lot. So right now and today, I would say biocontrol in orchards, in vineyards, and in many other crops is fully effective. We have great tools. We need to use also modelization. We need to use resistant crops, etc., etc., etc. But we have quite a lot of things in our hands. So why not going fast? For myself, I have one problem as a farmer. Sometimes we see other countries having biocontrol solutions registered. Fortunately, I must say we live in France, and France is very open to this, and often we have 120-day registrations for solutions. But sometimes I see some discrepancies in Europe, and looking also at what happened with COVID and having seen how fast a vaccine could come to the market, I would say if we would put these efforts into research and development and into also registering new solutions, this could be a big part and a big step for tomorrow.
Thank you very much, Philippe. Let's now jump straight to Marta Mesa of Slow Food. She's the director of Slow Food, Brussels. Slow Food is, for those who don't know, is a 30-year-old grassroots movement advocating for a more responsible food system and a shift to agroecological farming. So Marta, let's get to the policy solutions that will speed and scale agroecology. Do you agree that biocontrol is essential to the Green Deal? What is your reaction to what you've heard?
Thank you, John, and hi, everyone. Absolutely, biocontrol is fundamental, and what I really appreciated in the report and in discussion we heard today is really the point about how this can help in the transition. I think one key element of the Green Deal and the Farm to Fork is really how do we transition from where we are nowadays, where, as Faustine said in the beginning, there is a clear sense of urgency. There is clear data that we cannot continue with business as usual. How do we transition to a more sustainable scenario? And in that sense, what is really what is really interesting about biocontrols is, again, how we can empower farmers to take up these different solutions to farming. In that sense, in terms of the policy recommendations, besides what has already been discussed in terms, of course, of having binding targets, because as long as we have voluntary measures, we're not going to make really much of a headway. And that's one of the problems we have with the Common Agricultural Policy at the moment. We, of course, need right incentives, but what we've been discussing also in other conversations, and it's also highlighted in the report, is the importance of the advisory services. We cannot expect farmers who want to embrace the transition to know out of the blue how to do this. And it's also because biocontrol is not just about substituting one substance for the other. It's a different way of farming altogether. It's a different approach. It's working with nature, it's knowing nature around you. And so also in that, in our own experience as global movement, where we our movement involves farmers, but also food artisans and cooks and citizens. What we see that works extremely well is the basically farmer to farmer exchange, because that's where you get to the core of how in practice you can change the way you work in gradual steps, because again, it's a transition. If you've been receiving incentives and payments to develop a certain kind of farm for the last 40, 60 years, it takes time to change that. It requires investments and training. What I also wanted just to add that I really appreciated in the report and is the part about soil. We recently had a conversation with some of our farmers exactly about the issue of pesticides, and they were emphasizing the importance of, rather than concentrating on basically tackling pests and weeds and so on and diseases, we should rather concentrate on nourishing the soil, because that's what basically guarantees also, it's the foundation of the health of the plant and of the micro ecosystem that you have around the cultivation. And in that sense, I just want to mention also that for us, slow food, what's also key in all of this is the cultivated biodiversity, meaning the food biodiversity, the diversity of varieties that are cultivated in the field and that have been developed over centuries by farmers to respond to how nature was evolving around them. So, and to oversimplify it, it's varieties that have been developed indeed in like in tandem with natural developments, rather than seeking to develop tomato varieties that would withstand long transportation trips on trucks. And then you have, just to make an example, but the rubbery, watery, tasteless tomatoes. So it's really about these biodiversities also proven to be more resilient to, and I see that Philip is nodding, but to diseases and to pests. So that's also a key element that goes hand in hand with biocontrols. And the very last thing that I also wanted to mention is that besides the evidence that has already been mentioned, besides the solutions that are already out there and the evidence that there is that these solutions are viable, there is also three things that, again, from our own experiences, global food movement, we know well, is that the farmers that are, for instance, involved in our movement, but not just them, really talk about a different quality of life. It's not just about harvesting crops, it's about the quality of your life altogether and how you, again, work with the environment, but also with the community around you. It's also, we, as I said, as a global movement, we involve people from across the food system, and the cooks, the thousands of cooks that work with us, the thousands of food artisans, whether they're beer brewers or cheese producers or you name it, they are also looking for that quality and that natural aspect of growing food in the respect of the environment, of the people, of nature, and of also culture. And finally, if you also see, there's right now an ongoing European citizens initiative called Save Bees and Farmers that has collected already over 600,000 signatures. This is another indicator that also citizens do want to see a different way of doing farming and of what they eat. So just to say, there are many pushes in the right direction. So in terms of policy, it's high time. It's great that we have the Green Deal. We hope that this ambition doesn't get watered down at any point and that we have really binding targets to achieve that ambition. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Marta. Before we engage the audience and others, Jennifer, do you want to have just a couple of thoughts on reflections on what you've just heard?
Yes, thank you very much. I think what we've seen is that biocontrol is so much more than just an alternative to pesticides. It's an enabler for the transition. Resilient systems are built around the biological buffering, the biodiversity, and the good agronomic practice. And we really need this for the transition that we're looking for in farm to fork. And I'm really delighted to hear that that we'll soon be seeing these eagerly awaited data requirements from Eric. But we also need this type of approach, this revised approach, this adapted approach for senior chemicals, for pheromones, for natural substances. As Eric, the other Eric said, that we really need to allow that innovation. There are questions in the chat about, have we got enough of these products? Can we extend it to broadacre crops? Yes, we can. They're there. They're ready in the pipeline, but we need to be able to get them through the system. And the time it takes and the sort of stifling is really a problem for us to be able to deliver these farm to fork goals. But great to hear all your comments, and thank you very much.
Thanks, Jennifer. So we have Bruno Prince first from the French Ministry of Agriculture. Bruno, can you come onto camera? France has a national biocontrol strategy in place already, so leading the way, well, I'm sure with Netherlands and other countries as Spain as well. There is clearly a movement happening across Europe. So Bruno, the floor is yours. Welcome.
Okay. Thank you. So first of all, I would like to acknowledge the organizing committee to allow sharing our experience on biocontrol. Yes, the story begins, like Eric Lejoie said, with the Directive Sud in 2009, where for the first time we have in the Annex 3 the principle that sustainable biological, physical, and other non-chemical methods must be preferred to chemical methods if they provide satisfactory pest control. And then from then, in 2010, France has introduced for the first time a regulatory framework for the use of biological control agents. Here, it was only at this time for insects, useful for crop protection. This dispositive was fully operational in 2012. And from 2014, we had a new law, and the Parliament introduced the definition of biocontrol in the French legislation. So we have in our rural code the definition, maybe not the, but a definition of biocontrol. So biocontrol is a concept which is broader than only BCAs, so the microbials. It groups all methods and products and agents using natural mechanisms for crop protection. So biocontrol refers in particular to microorganisms, so the insects, the non-vertebrous BCAs, let's say, the plant protection products based on microorganisms, botanicals, minerals, animal-based products, and semiochemicals. So the pheromones that were already introduced by Philippe. So to limit the development of biocontrol products to those of low concern, France has developed specific provisions to enhance the evaluation and to ease the placing on the market of low-risk products of biocontrol. So it means that it's not because the product is natural that it is of no concern for the environment and for the health. So here we introduce here in France a second step, a second filter, which is the risk. And if a product is of low risk, then it can enter a specific list, and the product will have facilities to go on the market. So from 2014, this worked well. We have now more or less 600 products on the market. But in 2018, the French Parliament asked to speed up this deployment of biocontrol. And so he asked the government to implement a national strategy for the deployment of biocontrol. And basically, this strategy was published last year, November 2020. The strategy is built in 4 axes. So I'm happy to be here because I heard many things, and I guess that in our strategy with our 4 axes, we try to gather everything that I heard here. So the first axe is dedicated to research and innovation. The idea is to increase the knowledge on innovation, to have more plant protection methods, and to discover new opportunities. The second axis is the regulation at national level. The idea is to have a framework which is adapted to this agricultural shift. The third axis is the testing products on the field in combination with other techniques like robotics, agricultural machineries, sensor, helping tools to identify the condition for success of these methods. And then last axis is to work at EU level. So basically that's what we are doing with Commission, and that what we will do in few months now with the French presidency of the Council, because we would like to allow a definition of the biocontrol to be set up at the European level. That's what we will push, and I've seen that it is something that that you are waiting for. And so we will try to do our best, at least to push that at EU level.
Thanks very much, Bruno. That's really interesting. Let's have some other comments. We've got a few questions actually in from the audience. Thank you, and do continue to ask your questions because we have just 15 minutes left actually of this debate. I think what's, we had a question, for example, and maybe I can just throw this open to whoever wants to answer from the panel. I'm just going to give a few, read out a couple, 2-3 questions, and then we can have a general comment. There was a question from Dominique. Does biocontrol have the potential to completely replace conventional plant protection products? What are the current limitations and how to overcome them? We had another question about what are the largest barriers for farmers to switch from chemical products to biocontrol? Who'd like to take a stab at addressing some of these questions? And maybe I can throw one of my own into the mix, something like, what policy changes will speed and scale biocontrol? So the industry stays agile and innovative, and this came up before. What specific changes are needed? And do you think we have in place, I mean, to Eric's comment, Eric Liégeois' comment before, do we need to fast track evaluation and approvals for biocontrol, for microbial, semiochemicals, and natural substance, for example? While leaving room for member states to innovate and to make sure that they have the right controls in place. Who would like to answer? Hands up from the panel. We have Eric van der Sommen. You'd like to make a comment. And this probably will be your last chance to comment, so feel free to get your message across.
Okay, there were a lot of questions, so hard to pick from them. You can easily pick what's easy for you. Then, the first question you asked was: is our biological control agents would they be able to totally ban pesticides? And I hope to say yes, but I think that it will be quite a problem because I think there will be some diseases which still would need some kind of application of pesticide, but we should be proudly aiming at least reducing it by 50% on a short notice in order to have more room for biological control agents. And by creating the demands, I think you're also influencing the markets and the possibilities to introduce new biological control agents.
Thank you, Eric. That's very clear. We had also Eric Liégeois from the Commission as a response.
Yeah, I would like to respond to the comment. Why are farmers not taking up this new technology? Simply, in my view, because they don't know them sufficiently. So maybe the products are made available on the market and farmer will still not endorse these technologies. Why so? Because they simply are not aware of them. Maybe they fear that this is, or the rumor is saying that they are not effective enough. So plenty of reports like the one presented today by IEEP should also come from the farm advisory services in the first place. So this is their role to say, well, when you have this integrated pest management regime, please think first to the BCA, and then you will then shift to the to a more sustainable plant protection practice. I think this is the best way is to really make the farmer more sensitive to that, and we have our own duty to transform indeed this placing on the market approach into a fast track system. By the way, for the low risk plant protection product and microorganism, pheromones and natural extract of plant that we didn't mention today, there are some provision already existing. Member states are simply not not all member states, but majority of member states are simply not using them, and they are reluctant to identify the product with a low impact profile as low risk, simply because there are always something wrong with the co-formulant, something wrong with the precaution that we recommend. Even by using the microorganisms, you should wear gloves sometimes, because there is a question about sensitization potential of any biological living organism. So this is the simple reason why. So we need really to rethink this in our regulatory system in order to really clear out all doubts about this low risk biocontrol agent. Thank you.
Thank you. We also had a comment from Vicente.
Sorry, it was to answer Dominic questions about the potential of biocontrol to replace conventional. In my opinion, maybe not completely. Biocontrol can replace conventional, at least now, but we have many examples where biocontrol is a very effective tool. So we need to explore these opportunities and to use the conventional only for cases where biocontrol is not enough to make a proper control. And also about the limitation, Eric mentioned before that one of the limitations is the lack of knowledge of farmers of these new technologies. In our case, what we did is we started by a pilot project with a small area, well, small to be effective, but a small area, and we involve farmers, citizens, municipalities, etc. So once you demonstrate that in a pilot project this works, and once they see the benefit, you are able to enlarge to a wider area, and now we are 100% of the rice production about this biocontrol. So that's first.
Thank you, Vincente. That's very clear. Marta, you had a comment to make.
Yeah, very quickly, but just to say, besides agreeing with what Eric Liégeois said indeed about raising awareness and training and having the advisory systems really support this, I just wanted to emphasize again the importance of the peer-to-peer exchange. So if that is something that policy could also encourage, that would go a long way, because there are many farmers, like indeed Philippe, who are already using this approach and these technologies, and who could really be very great ambassadors of explaining how to put this in practice. And the last thing is also maybe to keep into account, we haven't mentioned it so far, but it's also an issue of being aware about the true cost of food. So there are different discussions going on about true cost accounting, but if you look at also the cost of cleaning water from pesticides residues, or the cost of, pesticides on our health system because of the consequences it has on our health, then it's also another way of, to create not create, but give the idea of the sense of urgency, and that it's really, really important.
Thank you very much. A comment from Philippe.
Yes, maybe shortly, as a farmer, we are used nowadays to be fed by European subsidies. Maybe it would be good, because subsidies are just feeding. It's not giving you a sense of being proud of what you produce and what you do. Maybe it would be good to consider a real price for food, and I will say real food. And this would give back some proudness for growers, for farmers. And this would also probably, and I'm sure that because farmers don't like to pollute, farmers don't like this image that is given to them. And this would surely make things move also.
Very good. We probably have one more question that we can take from the floor. I think we had somebody raising their hand from Imeris, which is an industrial minerals company in France, Occitane. Are you able to take the floor? No. Technology. Okay, we also have some people from the, well, we have so many questions here. I'm going to select one, which is, let's get back to what are the largest barriers for farmers to switch from chemical to biological to biocontrol? Let's have that as a final question. And what does that mean, therefore, for the EU policy solutions that Eric has laid out from the Commission? Jennifer, do you want to have a word on that and everything else that perhaps that we've heard, and then we'll pass the floor to Faustine, because we are coming into the final minutes.
Okay, thank you, Jo. Yes, I think one of the barriers is a lack of products, as well as some of the advisory comments and learning that many people have mentioned. But just coming back perhaps to the regulation and the need for the simplified and adaptive regulation. And several people have mentioned this, and it is really key. I mean, let's just be real for a moment, and that if you have a biocontrol product today and you put it, asked to have it evaluated, then you've probably got a 3-year delay before it starts, and then a 5 to 8 year time frame to get it onto the market. And with all the best will in the world, we're at 2030. So we really need to be able to fast track in the existing regulation, or we need a new adapted regulation, or both in parallel, if we're really going to be serious about getting more biocontrol onto the market. And the importance of actually a definition to allow us to separate out what biocontrol can bring and what the others can bring, and to allow us to look at CAP, to allow us to look at new regulation is really key. So we're really grateful for the French to help us to push that one forward. And Eric, both Erics have mentioned the need for innovation. And if we're going to have more products on the market for the farmers, we really need to have that regulation that frees up the innovation and allows those products to come to market, because we have them, they're in the pipelines. We really need to be able to get them to market. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Before we pass the floor just to Faustine, just to wrap up, I'd just like to, actually before Faustine wraps up, I'd just like to quickly thank our panelists for your amazing, insightful interventions. You know, we've got so many questions in the chat. We're going to keep those and we're going to answer you, we promise you. So if you have final questions in the few final minutes, do type them in. We promise somebody will get back to you with an answer, because we want to make sure that everybody's questions are answered fully, and that we do continue this conversation after the event. So thank you for asking questions, audience. Thank you, speakers, for being so brilliant. To Jean-François, Nora, for this timely report. To Juliet, Sarah, and Isabel, behind the scenes, invaluable support. Of course, to Faustine and Jennifer for co-hosting the event. I'll now pass the floor to Faustine for final remarks after all of this rich debate today. Thanks, Faustine.
Thanks, Jo. Yes, indeed, it was actually a very rich debate, and I must confess that I learned a lot from our speakers today, and I was very pleased to see how active the chat was also with all the participants, so thanks a lot. It would be way too ambitious to try in 2 minutes, actually, that I have left, 1 minute now, to summarize the very rich discussion that took place, so I'm not going to do that, but I just wanted to stress again a few things as final remarks for today. So again, given the challenges that we are faced with, it's clear, and I think this was clear from everyone, that the status quo is not an option on the table anymore. We need to move, and to move fast. The State of the Environment report, actually published by the IEEA back in 2020, says that we have the next decade to scale up necessary actions. Biocontrol is among them. I think that appeared clearly today in our event. But for biocontrol to be taken up fully, there are several changes that needs to happen in the EU law and also beyond. 2 things here. The CAP should be focused on the transition. And as I said, it's very timely because they are sealing the deal today and tomorrow on it. EcoScheme has the potential to be an engine for that. It needs to be focused on the transition. And last but not least, and that will be my last point of today, there is also a need for change in mindsets. It's necessary to move away from our traditional thinking of dealing with problems. We need transformative changes, and that's unavoidable. So with that words, again, I'd like to thank you all and wish you a nice rest of the day.
Thanks, Faustine. Thank you, everybody. And we will get back to you. Let's continue this conversation on social media with Biocontrol Breakthrough. Thank you to our speakers again. Thank you, Bruno, for stepping in with the French movement there. Thank you all. Have a great day, and let's Biocontrol Breakthrough and talk to you all soon. Bye.
Thank you.